Osapèkwinùnt. You know me as Yankee, and welcome to the channel, Yankee's Outdoor Adventures. November is Native American Heritage Month, and in today's video, I will be bringing awareness to the very first treaty ever signed between the United States of America and a Native nation. Be sure to check out the playlist of all the other Native American heritage videos I have uploaded. You can do that just by following the slide card at the top of the screen. As I mentioned, today's video is about the very first treaty ever signed with the United States of America and a Native nation known as the Lenape Nation. Not only is this treaty special because it was first, it was also special in the design of the treaty, and it was incredibly unique in the way the treaty was written and what the Native Americans wanted in return for their services and their military force. This treaty was written in a way unlike any other treaty before and unlike any other treaty after. Before I continue with the treaty, let me give you a quick backstory on the Lenape people. The Lenape people lived in a land known to them as Lenape Hockin. It took up all of New Jersey, most of Pennsylvania, New York, and Delaware. This was the region that they called their homeland, and it was their tribal land when the settlers first came here. During this time, up until the treaty I am talking about, there were treaties signed between the natives and the settlers. However, these treaties were actually signed with British settlers, not signed with America, because America wasn't thought of yet. And that's the way it remained up until the French-Indian War. Now, 4 years into the French-Indian War, the natives of the Lenape Hockin region were completely driven out of their homeland with a treaty called the Eastern Treaty. Now, this treaty created a lot of tension between the Native Americans and the settlers. And it's important to point out that the settlers were British at this time. Now, because of the problems and the hard feelings that was created from this treaty, the French found themselves an ally in many of the natives as they came into the territory. Some tribes remained neutral, although a lot of tribes, having hard feelings with the British, sided with the French and assisted them in the battle until 1763, which was the end of the French-Indian War, leaving the Native Americans kind of out in the cold. Those who helped the French no longer had French assistance and were once again left with the British. For the next few years, tensions ran high between the Native Americans and the British, for 12 years to be exact, because in 1755 started the Revolutionary War. And once again, Native Americans had an opportunity to stand against their long-term enemy, the British. 3 years into the Revolutionary War, things weren't really going very well for the new fledgling Americas. They were outnumbered and outstrengthed, and they needed assistance of a large ally. Enter into the picture the Lenape. Now, at this point in the Ohio region, or the Northwest Territory, the Ohio region was primarily controlled by the Lenape tribe. Chief White Eyes was a chief of the Lenape Nation in a very large region of the Northwest Territory. And fortunately for the up-and-coming Americans, he didn't have good feelings about the British. He felt the British had betrayed his people many times before. Chief White Eyes had an incredibly large army, and it would definitely help. But he stayed true to a fact that he would not assist the new Americans unless they designed a treaty that would benefit both sides equally. And it's in this arrangement that made the treaty so special. You see, White Eyes didn't want just a sovereign land. He didn't want land like other treaties had dictated in the past, where the natives would be allowed to live here and be left alone. No, he had a vision of something different for his people. And he wanted Ohio That's right. He wanted Ohio. At this time, there were 13 colonies in the United States, and he totally understood what the United States was about and what they were trying to do in liberating themselves from Britain, and he wanted part of it. So he agreed to give the assistance to the New Americas if they would agree to give him Ohio, but not give him Ohio as a sovereign land. Instead, to allow the native nation to have a state inside the United States that functioned like every other state, a state that was part of the Union and Native American. And on September 17th, 1778, the treaty was signed. It was signed between the Lenape Native Nation and what you know today as the United States of America. Fast forward 5 years, 1783, the end of the Revolutionary War. Unfortunately for the Lenape, it was also the end of the need of the resistance, and it wouldn't be long until the end of the treaty followed. For 14 years, the Lenape tried to maintain their dream and their vision, and they fought to be part of the United States of America. But eventually, in 1797, that's when the treaty was just completely dissolved without any legal precedence. So now you know about the Treaty of 1778, the first treaty of its kind. But you know what? These aren't just stories that are made up. The treaty is still on display yet today, where our country that strives itself into trying to fix adversities and to try and to rise above prejudice, viewpoints, and opinions, still has on display their own shame in the way that they spit in the face of an ally who, without their help, this would not be here today.